Hello everyone and welcome to episode 65 of the Metacast Behind the Scenes podcast.
The holiday edition.
The holiday edition, yes. I am Arnab Deka.
I'm Ilya Bezdilev.
So today we'll try to keep it to 30 minutes. We are going to talk about three things. A quick recap of the year so far, because this might be the last episode of the year as far as you'll hear. We'll talk about a very big outage we had over the weekend and a very serendipitous solution to that, and a little bit about Bluesky.
I wonder why you are so non-committal about this being the last episode of the year, because it is going to be the last episode of the year. Unless something really disrupts our plans.
Exactly, unless we have an emergency or something like that. Yeah, so we're recording this at the end of November, so there's still a month to go. So we'll see. But I think it's highly likely that this will be the last you'll hear from this podcast in this year.
Yeah. So do you want to start with the holiday stuff first?
Sure, yeah. So at the beginning of the year, where were we, Ilya? When did we launch our closed beta? In February or March or something?
Yeah, closed beta. I believe it was February 12th or something, because I think it was end of January or very early Feb when Apple announced transcripts in their app, and we just scrambled and launched.
Yeah, and we were like, we have to do this immediately, yeah. Till then, you, me, and Jenny, we were maybe using the app like ourselves.
February, we launched open beta. We were in closed beta since August last year.
We had a handful of users at that time, yeah.
Right, yeah. And then we launched the open beta in February 2024. It was a miracle how your standards change when timelines change. When you really want something and there is an external factor and you just throw your perfectionism out of the window and things just start to happen. For me, it was a very interesting lesson when we actually did that.
Well, I think even with that urgency, it still took us a few more months. Like we launched in Android Play Store in September, if I remember, or maybe end of August. And then iOS App Store in October. And here we are in end of November, end of the year. It's by no means a hockey stick kind of growth. Otherwise, you probably would have heard otherwise from us already. But we're seeing healthy signals, I think. We're seeing an active number of people continue to use the app, continue to use the powerful features. The number of subscriptions, premium users are trickling, but increasing over time. Healthy percentage, I would say. And most interestingly, I think we have somehow, without us putting any marketing dollars in, it's been all organic marketing so far. People are finding the app. Every month we are seeing on and on new people come in, they try the app. Some of them try the free trial, some of them stick on, some of them drop off. We have reasons to know why this is happening. So it's not looking bad, I would say, at the end of the year. What do you think, Ilya?
I definitely agree with you. We crossed $500 in revenue about a month ago. Actually, I have not checked the all-time revenue recently. I just know what we were making in the last couple of weeks from the Revenue Cat app, because it doesn't show you the all-time values. It only shows you the last 28 days, I think, or last 2 weeks. I don't remember what it was, but
yeah, it only shows that on your website, the all-time revenue.
What I really like about this stage is we get the users who email us, people who comment on the Reddit posts, DM us, and most of those are pretty thoughtful messages and emails. And even when people drop off, some of them actually drop off after they ask for something and explain their reasoning, and we tell them it's going to take a while, or I don't think we really outright denied anybody's request. I think it was mostly it will just take some time. And they're like, yeah, it's a blocker. And then they hopefully will come back later. And I think one of the biggest actually things that we've learned so far is the private podcasts. People who pay for Stratechery in the New York Times or whatever, all these podcasts or Patreon podcasts, those people actually are likely to pay for a premium podcast app because they are already paying tens of dollars for a set of subscriptions, right? And we don't support that yet. That's going to be one of the things that will be coming pretty soon. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the amount of positive response and thoughtful response. Even if it ends up in the user dropping out, the interaction is always positive. And we always learn from our users. I think so far we've only gotten hate from one person, that unhappy Redditor from the Overcast subreddit, who comes to our subreddit and just shits in our posts. And we called him out, or her, like, why don't we just jump on the call and we talk and you tell us more because you have really good thoughts. And actually, I don't think they've commented on any of our posts afterwards.
Yeah, it's okay. There'll always be, especially on Reddit, there'll be like that. Well, it's Thanksgiving week in the US, so I'm going to say, yeah, we're very grateful to have the people who are continuing to use the app, the new people who have come on. And actually, I just checked, since you said the $500 all-time revenue, we've grown more than 20 plus a handful of percentages since then already.
We are over 600 now?
Yeah.
Cool.
600 plus some change.
I think at this point you can just tell a number, just say the number.
619. So yeah. So it's not bad. And it's been about a month, I think, since we crossed 500. So that's pretty good without any marketing dollars. And I think the features that you talked about, we have some powerful playlist features coming in, private podcast. And today, actually, we're going to talk about the outage, which turned into a really nice feature for us. That's the second segment of this we're going to transition into shortly. So
I think this year we have put together the foundation to work on more of those really cool and useful features that we can ship. I want to say pretty quickly, but as far as software development goes, they are never quick. But I think we've done most of the really difficult work already, at least for the foundation. And now we can really iterate on value-add features, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think by the time this episode comes out, we will have one of those newer things shipped, and we want to keep shipping more and more of these, and we will talk about that in a second.
At the same time, though, I do feel now that we're in production and we have active users that are using the app, the importance of like things going wrong is much more now. With just 2.5, 3 people, it can get taxing sometimes. So that will have a weight on us delivering value-add features faster and faster, these kind of outages. To this one, we locked into. So let's get into like this outage over the weekend. Yeah.
So this weekend, I noticed that the transcript was taking a long time to generate for one of my podcasts. Sometimes it happens. I dismissed it. I'm like, whatever. But then we got an email from a user who told us that they've not been able to see transcripts for some of the newer episodes that they've been listening to, which means that something was off.
A premium paying user, right?
A paying user who had been with us for a long time. And if you're listening to this, you know who you are. So yeah, we're really thankful for all of the feedback you've given us. And this is also a special user because we know the user. They've given us their time from very early days, and they've also given us their money, and they've also given us feedback. It's the kind of user that you want to always keep happy.
The ideal user, yes. The ideal customer, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. We use a third-party provider to run AI models for transcriptions. And I looked at their dashboard from my phone, and I'm seeing that we have a bunch of jobs that have been started but never completed. They were still in the starting phase.
So going a 1 minute technical rabbit hole into this, what's happening is because we're a very small scale app, everybody probably knows that running AI models is expensive. Imagine a Lex Friedman episode that's like 4.5 hours of audio. Audio is already like massive amounts of data, and 4.5 hours of that. Running AI models on that is pretty expensive. So what we don't want to do is have a fleet of servers that we own and we keep running all the time waiting for these kind of jobs. So what we instead do is it's almost like a serverless mechanism. So we don't own our own servers. Whenever there is a transcript job that's coming in, we have set up our ML models to be run in a serverless fashion on servers that somebody else owns, and they have made a SaaS out of it. We call that service, and they do the orchestration and running on the ML jobs, and then we extract the output from it. So that service, there's no errors, anything. It just says the instance is booting, and that's it, right? It's stuck.
And we have not changed anything.
We haven't changed anything, and there's no controls on our side to like reboot the instance or fix it or something like that. So basically it's stuck. We created a ticket with them, but there's no response for like over a day.
I think it's been 2 days at this point.
2 days, yeah. And we had like 10 plus premium paying customers, transcripts fail like this, getting stuck like this at that point. So we had to do something about it.
Yeah, but then to the rescue came who?
Our friend. Do you want to name him? Or, well, we didn't get his permission yet. So.
But I guess we'll just say that his name is the same as mine.
Yeah. I actually tagged him on a LinkedIn post already. So.
Oh, you did? Okay. So I'm pretty sure that you got confused by that email exchange where you had two Ilias, especially when Gmail only shows the first name.
Oh my God, that was crazy, yeah. Even on Apple Mail app, because it's just Ilya, and you. And it was so bizarre. But based on the context of who's saying what, I could totally figure it out, but it was pretty mad, yeah.
Yeah, so I met Ilya, I want to say a year ago, maybe a year and a half. Our kids used to go to the same, like a Russian preschool in Florida. Yeah, we just met at one of the play dates and we started talking about who does what. And I told him about the app and he actually had similar ideas in the past and he got really, really excited. He also had been a beta user from the very early days. He gave us a lot of feedback, also lots of technical inputs because he's also an engineer. I think about many months ago, he sent us an email. He's like, would you use my service if I built you a transcription service? And we said, yes, but at this price point. And out of the blue, I think a week ago or so.
Yeah, like I think last Tuesday or something. This is like 4 days before the outage that we had.
Yeah, he sent us an email. Actually, it landed in spam. We also didn't see it for 2 days. Maybe because the email had links and he sent it to one of our Google Groups aliases. It got filtered. I just was scrolling through those spam reports and I saw an email from him and I approved it. And the rest is history, right? Yeah, basically he said like, I have this service that I bootstrapped for you and I was able to get the cost to what you expect. Are you interested? And then you started experimenting with it. And I guess, yeah, why don't you tell more?
Yeah, so we started experimenting just by kicking off some jobs to it, looking at the quality, comparing it with the transcripts that we were generating already. And then we liked it. It was also way faster than our current mechanism with the serverless provider that we were talking about.
Like 5-6 times faster.
Yeah, because our serverless provider is also doing some optimization on their end. They're not keeping the servers running either. If it is cold, if that ML model has not been run in a while, it's cold, it takes some time for everything to boot up. And this was way faster. The price point was comparable to what we had. And so we were like, okay, let's get this into the app, but just for like our internal you, me, and Jenny as a feature so that we can toggle between the two types of transcripts that we have and compare. And so I think we did that for about a couple of days and we were already thinking, let's switch over to this. Maybe next week we can quickly switch over to this. That was probably like Thursday or Friday. We decided, okay, next week, let's just switch over to it. It won't be too much work. And then bam, the outage happens on Saturday. And you and I quickly talk on Slack and we figure out, okay, we have to do this like right now. Meanwhile, we had some terms and actually one of the other things is we wanted to use Ilya's service, but we were also like, we need to at least have some basic terms or conditions kind of agreed. Thankfully, he also shipped it out within the same day, I think, the terms and all that.
I think almost everything we asked for, because we also asked, I think, for some changes to the API, he shipped pretty much the same day or next day, which was incredible compared to that other company, right? We opened a ticket and there is no response. There is no way to track it. I remember I sent you a message. I'm like, so we just have this outage and I forgot exactly what I said, but the point is we're not doing anything. Yeah, that's when we decided to just make the switch.
Yeah, I did some hacky work on Saturday so that all transcripts for all users are getting generated via this new service now. Yeah, it's basically fixed.
I don't think we actually told Ilya about this. We just switched our production app to it.
Well, we did tell him that we're starting to use this for all our internal users, which is 3. But yeah, we didn't tell him that we switched over completely. We can tell him now before this episode comes out. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a good problem to have. If I was in his shoes, I would love to have that problem. And he was at the right time, with the right price point, with the right product. When he first sent that email and you started doing the prototyping, I was like, this is not the right time. I mean, I didn't tell you this, right? But I was thinking, this is not the right time to do this. But I want to keep the momentum with Ilya going. But that turned out to be the absolutely right thing to do. Because at first I thought it offers us redundancy, but it offered more than that.
Turns out we actually flipped the standby.
Right. We decided that we will flip the switch even before the outage. And then we wanted to keep our current mechanism as a fallback. But the thing doesn't work. It just broke.
I'm sure that operational problem will get figured out and it'll start working again. But we'll flip over, but now that will become our secondary, the standby mechanism.
One of the things that I'm always concerned about is small developers, especially like single developer operations. What if something goes wrong? What's their operational process and all that? Actually, I think when they just have one customer, which is us not being a huge scale operation, I think it's okay. Maybe when you have at least tens of thousands of transactions per day, I would say, and you have maybe like 100 customers, that's when if something goes terribly wrong, you will just be drowned by ops. But I think when you have a really small number of customers, well, the only problem is what if this happens in the middle of his night?
So I was actually thinking, like on Saturday, right, when I did this hot fix to switch over to the new service, is what if we didn't have the service at that time? What we would do? And we do have a solution, actually. I don't know if you'll like the solution, but we do have the solution. At the end of the day, we're running ML models. We're running it either in the serverless server we were using or now via this other service. But these are open source models that we are using with some tweaks in either way.
And for those people who are listening to this, you might hear some noise coming from our outside. It will soon go away.
It's fall, so there's a leaf blower going on outside. Hopefully the timing won't be interrupted too much, but we'll see. But yeah, worst case, Ilya, you, me, Jenny, we just roll up our sleeves, see what's failing and run those models locally on our machines. Our scale is thankfully not at getting 1,000 transcript requests a minute, so we can manage this by hand still. It's going to be painful, but that's what we'll have to. And then maybe if that's the thing, we live like that for a couple of days while we boot up a server of our own. I mean, if that's the only way, right? We boot up a server of our own, do the orchestration part there, and move it over there. It felt like a very Amazon Sev 2-ish situation for me over the weekend. But I was very happy, very proud to get it fixed like almost immediately. And also figure out that if we didn't have this, we would still have a way out of this problem.
Right. We could also download files, put them into Descript.
It's going to be more and more painful, but yeah, there are lots of ways, yeah.
Kudos to Ilya for predicting the outage. That's a pretty darn good prediction that he made, that our service will fall apart, and he was just there with his solution, which is amazing.
If we had conspiracy theories in this podcast, anyway, let's not get there.
What did he do to that other provider? Did he hack it?
Yeah, I know. Okay, on the theme of Thanksgiving, that's the, I think, third thanks goes out to Ilya for totally saving the day for us. So far, counting our users who have been with us for over a year, the premium paying customers, and the other people who are using and giving us feedback. Second goes out to the other person who told us about the outage, who's also been with us for like over a year at this point, uses our app for podcasts all the time and all that. So that's great. Now, let's quickly switch on to the app updates bit. And one of the most beautiful things to come out of this outage and switching over to Ilya's service is how fast it is. We already said it's 5 or 6 times faster, right?
Life gave us lemons and we made some lemonade from it.
Yeah. Maybe we put in a shot of like tequila in there too and make it a margarita even better now.
You know, I don't remember when it started, maybe about 8 years ago. I started having a really adverse reaction to tequila. I used to really like tequila, but then I was in Mexico and I was drinking those high-end tequilas in high-end all-inclusive hotel. And I was having hallucinations. And I'm like, maybe their tequila is, maybe something's wrong. I know it's an off topic. But then I tried some tequila in the US. Same exact thing. I drink a small margarita and I'm having wild hallucinations at night. So I have not had a tequila for a very long time.
I think when you came to our place, did you try one? Because I love making margaritas. I think you did. That was the last time probably.
Yeah, maybe I had so much of it that it overpowered my hallucinations. But yeah, tequila is one drink that I really feel weird about. Maybe it's also a specific kind of tequila. Maybe yours was different.
And for the other side, this is amazing how timing works, right? Till about a year and a half back, I hated tequila. And then we went to Mexico, had some really good tequilas there. And then I was like, okay, this is actually tequila. What I was drinking was shit. So because of this, our transcripts are now incredibly fast. If you use our app, you won't even know that you're requesting a transcript because we've made it all like behind the scenes. You just open up the podcast. Right now, it's estimating how many minutes and all that, and then it shows you. Usually it's, I want to say, between 5 and 15-ish minutes to generate the transcript for an episode. Depending on how long and how many speakers are there and all that, it takes different time. But now it's going to be like less than 30 seconds. And in almost all cases, even for a long episode, it's going to be less than a minute. It's going to be so fast that we're going to remove all that calculation of how long it's going to take, show you all that details. We're just going to rip out all that and make it super simple.
Yeah, and I've heard from a few people, like I'm listening to a 30-minute episode and I'm having to wait for like 10 minutes for the thing to be available. And by the time it is available, you already passed the premium paywall threshold. So it's all blurred. That also helps solve that problem.
So that update is coming very soon to the app.
Actually, that update is already in the app because it was a backend update. The UI is coming, but the speed is already there.
The UI still shows you like, 8 minutes, but then it's ready like within 30 seconds right now.
You had the sandbagging in the UI.
Yeah, we're going to remove the sandbagging, yes, and pour some water on it. All right, so the other feature, there's a bit of a tail to this one too, but I'll let you start, Ilya.
Yeah, the other feature, I just want to preface this. I was working on something else. And I'm like, while I'm in this file, I can add a few more lines of code and
just make this other awesome thing.
Yeah, create a super cool feature that wasn't even a high priority. But I'm like, well, why not? Long story short, ended up being 500 lines of code changed, 173 comments on pull request, and 37 commits.
Yeah.
And a week of calendar time, and 2-hour-long phone call, and countless messages in Slack, and a bit of frustration from both me and Arnav with the code, with the project, and with each other. But the end result is that now if you go to the description of the episode, actually as you listen to this episode, if you go to the description by tapping on that podcast cover icon in the middle, which actually I think is not very obvious, it's a button, we need to do something about it. In there, we always have the timestamps for different topics that we discuss. Now you can tap on those and the player will jump right there. So if you're already playing the episode, it will just jump to the other timestamp. If the episode is not playing, then it will open the episode and it will jump you to that part. So it works pretty much like YouTube.
Not just our podcast, like any podcast you're listening to on Metacast, as long as they have timestamps in the description, this will work.
Right, yeah, like Lex Friedman, he has dynamic ads, I think, or he has dynamic ads at the very end, which is why timestamps actually work, even if the length of the audio is slightly different, because it's not in the middle of the episode. Yeah, so that feature is really cool, especially for podcasts that I very rarely actually jump between topics in podcasts, because for podcasts that I listen to, I usually listen to the whole thing. But there are some things like you would send me a podcast and you would be like, oh, listen to this thing. And like, I'm not interested in spending the full hour listening to it. I can just jump to a specific topic. So now we made this possible with just 500 lines of code.
The lesson, if there is one lesson here, is regular expressions. We'll just keep it at that for now. But we had a lot of debate over that for multiple days.
I think ChatGPT is a secondary lesson here too. If you want some really bad regular expressions, you can ask ChatGPT and it will hallucinate you some.
Right. Okay. That feature is coming to, it's going to be what? 1.14?
1.14, yeah. So hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it's already out there.
Okay. So let's slowly start going towards the end of the episode, towards clearer blue skies all around us, hopefully.
Isn't that how time works?
Yes. You mean time is always going slowly?
That depends, but it always drifts towards the end.
Because maybe we're going towards a black hole or something like that. Okay, it's getting very distracting also here because my dog is now starting to react to the leaf blower, which is right outside now. So before everything goes crazy, let's talk about some bluer, clear blue skies.
Yeah, so I'll let you start because you were a Twitter user. I never really was.
Well, Bluesky is a social network, but it's also a open social network protocol called AT Proto. Twitter's former CEO, who is it, Jack Dorsey? He started Bluesky a while back, 2018, as an open alternative to Twitter. When Twitter started having all sorts of debates about censorship and left and right and all that, he started this. I have been on it for, I want to say, a year and a half at this point, probably. In terms of features, it was pretty good. Like early on, there were a lot of missing features itself. But recently, there were features. But all these social networks, they need the social network for it to work. And that was missing. And then you probably have heard already, listener, is that towards the middle and end of November, a massive migration of people into Bluesky has happened, right? As we speak right now, they're growing like 1 million more people every day or some crazy number like that. They're at about 22 or 23 million right now. That's when I think the social network starts making sense, is when all the people that you want to talk to are already there.
Right. And it's essentially Twitter users migrating mostly.
Yeah. And a lot of Twitter tech users held on to X and Twitter for a long time, especially indie hackers and people like that, because they have a big following on Twitter. It's very hard to say, okay, I'm going to leave all of this and go over. But a few influential people, I think, started this trend. I want to say of the two that comes to the top of my head, Kelsey Hightower, a month back, I think he made this high profile, okay, I'm done. I'm moving, here's Bluesky, and he has been very active and promoting Bluesky quite a lot, helping people out quite a lot. And then most recently, Justin Jackson, who was also in our episode last year, he moved over, and I think that made a lot of people move over as well.
Yeah, that made me actually go out and test it out.
A lot of indie hackers, I think, saw and took notice of that. But at the same time, Justin Jackson is in the tech indie hacker space. A lot of celebrities, lots of bigger influential people did the same move. So there's been a mass migration. You came on Saturday or something?
Sunday morning, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So we are both on Bluesky. So my first feel for, okay, this is actually working was Saturday night. I was watching a soccer match. I was having actual fun conversations about the match on Bluesky, replying to memes and posting memes and replying to comments and all that. I used to love doing this on Twitter way back when. But maybe because I don't pay for Twitter or for whatever reason, nobody actually looking at my tweets at all. So that was completely gone. I think I had moved over to Reddit for this sort of stuff. And this Saturday was the first time I was on both Reddit and Bluesky at the same time, having total fun with this. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I can share my impressions of the social network. So I've used actually a couple of Russian social networks before going on Facebook. Then there was Facebook, then there was Instagram. But I came to those networks when they were already mature. Well, I guess sort of mature. Not like right now. Now it's mainstream. There were people to talk to on those networks already. And Google Plus was the only network where I started using as an early adopter. And then I think it died out before it became, it never became mainstream, I guess.
Did you ever use Google Wave?
No, I missed that. Twitter, I tried multiple times. I could never grasp what makes Twitter interesting. The short blurbs of text or memes. For me, actually, it became interesting only after Elon Musk bought Twitter. I'm basically just following his account and I'm looking at all those memes. It's gotten a lot darker recently and also a lot more politically motivated. But overall, for me, it was just basically the place where I see what Elon is doing. The feed was always overwhelming to me. Then the Threads came out when they wanted to kill Twitter. And Threads was just like Instagram, but without the pictures.
Well, sometimes with the pictures too.
Because they were reposts from Instagram. Or cross-post.
Yeah. I still use Threads, I want to say a few times a week I'll open it up. It feels like the National Geographic or REI. For me, that's the kind of stuff I get is hiking or fall pictures or winter pictures and all that. Animals. And it feels very much like a nice magazine, but it doesn't feel like people or small community of people. It doesn't feel like I'm talking to somebody. It feels like I'm browsing a nice magazine with National Geographic photos in it.
It feels like you are being broadcast to.
Yes. It doesn't feel like I'm actively talking to somebody in front of me. Whereas that was the early Twitter and now Bluesky is more like that, yeah.
I'm personally a big fan of the channels approach. Like Telegram has channels. You subscribe to a channel, or like podcast is essentially a channel. You go to the podcast and you see what you want to consume, right? Whereas those other networks, they have the feeds. I mean, Bluesky also has a feed, but here's how I feel it. So when I came to Bluesky, I think it was yesterday, right? And it feels like a bunch of people who are assigned to the same classroom and they're just trying to meet each other. So they are sort of in this together because they're in the same room, but it's like a very large classroom, maybe like a university class, like 1,000 people, or it's fairly large. But it's before cliques started to form. And then you start to like meet people, you just comment on random people's posts, just go and talk to random people at an event. Like you don't know them, they don't know you, but everybody's there to meet.
Yeah. You should post this on Bluesky. I think this is a great analogy. Yeah. Love it.
And this feels so good compared to other social networks like LinkedIn or even Twitter, I think. It's overrun by people who want to get something out of their audiences. The influencers, right? I don't have anything against influencers per se, but like on LinkedIn, I always feel like I'm being pitched something.
You don't even realize that you're being pitched something sometimes.
Yeah. And sometimes also you look at some post, it has whatever, hundreds of thousands of likes, and it's like dumb as hell. It's like the going gets tough, the tough gets going. You know, it's like this kind of banality, is it the right word? It's like cliche, right? So things like this, and it gets like hundreds of thousands of likes and reposts and all. Like I'm starting to lose hope in humanity. I'm like, this is just so obvious. If this is the kind of content that goes viral, I don't know if I want to be in that network. Whereas on Bluesky, what I really liked, Bluesky has a really nice growth hack called the starter packs. It's just so funny. Like in my feed, everybody and their dog is creating a starter pack of indie hackers. I've seen probably at least 10 of those already. So starter pack is basically a list of people who do certain thing. You can follow them all by opening the starter pack. And like every couple of hours, somebody else would be like, oh, I'm starting a starter pack of indie hackers or bootstrappers. The reason why people do this is they put their name on it.
In that way, I'm probably a bit lucky because I was on Bluesky before this wave started, because I had astronomy and my soccer and my indie hacker starter packs like way before. Like I didn't create them, but I found them before the mass migration happened.
No, but the thing is like you have to be on them. So by the time Justin Jackson joined, for example, or he became more active, he was on one of those packs, and he and a bunch of other people, right? That's how they got to 1,000 followers really, really quick.
Oh, no, I'm not saying I have many followers. I'm saying I found the right people to follow before this happened, and through them I'm getting the right sort of content. But right now, I'm following anybody and everybody whose account I see and I find even mildly interesting. I'm like, yeah, like you said, right? It's in like a university campus. You're meeting people for the first time. I'm giving everybody a chance that like, okay, you post good things and I'll keep following you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I followed somebody through one of those starter packs, because I followed a bunch of those, and I have like 250 people that I follow through those starter packs mostly. And somebody posted something like, what are you working on today? And I'm like, I'll just respond. And I was the first one to respond, right? I'm like, I'm writing unit tests for regular expressions, right? And he actually had a very good point there. He's like, you can set up monitoring for the RSS feeds for different formats and run those episode descriptions through AI, through an LLM, and ask it, does the regular expression that we have still do what we needed to do for this particular episode? I'm like, this is interesting. So like we don't use AI to parse it, but we can use it to sort of monitor whether it's still doing the right thing, because we can detect it otherwise, because it needs some smartness in there. Anyway, but this was the discussion I had today. And I'm like, where else would you have this kind of discussion? In our Slack, maybe.
Yeah. 4 people DM'd me in Bluesky just saying hello and what are you building. There was no selling. One person I found out, he's from like Pakistan, very similar background to me, who's in Vancouver building something of their own, ex-Google. It was like amazing. This is the kind of connections I used to find on Twitter like maybe 8-10 years ago.
Yeah. Actually, I only got one DM, and that person invited me to subscribe to his newsletter.
Well, there's always going to be those, so yeah.
Yeah, and I also saw a post where somebody was asking, that person tagged Bluesky, and they're like, can you add the count of views to the post? And actually I responded to that. I'm like, I actually don't want the count of views, because when you have impressions, it starts to drive the influencer sort of behavior, where people start to optimize for reach. Like, how can I game this? That's what they start to think about. Maybe this was the underlying motivation for that person's post too. I don't know. I kind of actually enjoy that it does not have the impressions. It removes some of that anxiety when you post stuff.
Yeah. In related news, it looks like X is removing that, showing the number of likes and all that views from tweets. I haven't been on X for a week or so, but apparently you can swipe your post and hide those things now.
Cool. So yeah, we are both on Bluesky. We are trying it out. And you can follow us by tapping a link in the episode description.
Yeah. And I think our handles, we're going to switch our handles to use Metacast domain, custom domain, which is actually another really cool thing because it's an open protocol. And the way it's built is if you own the domain metacast.app, you can actually own the handles in Bluesky with metacast.app and somebody else can't like impersonate you.
Right. Yeah. Mine is ilya.metacast.app. I think you haven't set up. Well, you will have set it up by the time this episode comes out.
It's going to be arnab.metacast.app.
Yeah. But it shows the affiliation of you with the thing that you're claiming to be yours, which is really cool.
Yeah. And it's open protocol. So lots of people are building interesting things on top of it, I think. Like the early Twitter again. Twitter had a lot of cool things around it, yeah, before they decided to shut down third-party API access and all that, yeah.
A lot of indie hackers are doing like follower growth charts and stuff like that. So it's exactly the thing that you're observing on LinkedIn when LinkedIn starts to get more mainstream. All those vanity metrics and like gaming the algorithm, all that stuff is coming to Bluesky actually much faster than to other networks because there is already a playbook and a pattern established elsewhere.
Yeah. But I'm glad I get to see like cat pictures and I don't know, underwater whale pictures and all of that in my feed right now. And it's kind of vibrant. So that's cool.
Yeah, actually, I've seen some space pictures. They're really cool. So let's conclude this with wishing people Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, I guess.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. I won't sing the rest of it.
Yeah, because it's going to be the last episode of the year. Well, if it's not the last episode of the year, I don't know if we will be actually in the mood to record another one. So I'll just declare this to be the last episode.
If this is not the last episode of the year and you are going to hear from us again in 2024 through this podcast, it's either very good news or very bad news.
Yes. And if it's very bad news, we'll probably be too busy sorting out whatever happens.
To record a podcast, yeah. So what are you reading and listening?
I've been listening to a lot of Rogan recently. I've gotten some flack for that on LinkedIn the other day. Somebody I know, he's like, do you listen to this moron, Joe Rogan, whatever, like imbecile? I decided to not even respond. Basically, like, whoever is listening to this, you might have opinions about Joe Rogan. But I did listen to a bunch of his more recent interviews. And it's kind of really nice to just like go out for a walk and just listen. Because his podcasts are less of an interview, more of a conversation. And I know people have different views about Rogan's views. Frankly, I don't care anymore. Because the cool thing about podcasts, you can listen to whatever you want to listen to, right?
Your listening time is between your ears and AirPods and you. And don't let anybody tell you what to listen to or not to listen to something. Yeah.
Exactly. And besides, it's the most popular podcast in the world. That's the thing, right? So I think there is always a vocal minority. Actually, I think Nicholas Taleb talks about this in the Skin in the Game book. There is a thing called tyranny of minority, where there is a vocal minority that goes against the grain, and then they make everybody conform to their views because they were the vocal ones, even though actually the majority just might not care enough. So there is a certain group of vocal people who don't like Rogan, and they'll create this impression, especially on social networks like LinkedIn, that Rogan is persona non grata. But if you look at the stats, it's the most followed and most listened to podcast in the world. The thing that I found the most interesting about the Rogan podcast recently is he published an interview with Donald Trump on October 26th. I think just after the election, so like 2 weeks in, maybe 3 weeks in after the publication. It became the most downloaded podcast episode of 2024 on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I know you don't care, and I told you already, like, you should not care about other people's opinions, but since we are recording the podcast, I'll also give you my opinion on this. I used to be a big Rogan fan. I actually still like the way he runs the conversations, but I think increasingly over the last couple of years, the number of crazy conspiracy theories it's not necessarily he doesn't bring it about, but his guests bring it about, and he doesn't push them back far enough. He doesn't ask the hard questions. So I don't like that side of it anymore. I don't listen to all of it, but I did listen to the Donald Trump one. I actually think that was a nice conversation. And I think Kamala Harris, I know he reached out to Kamala Harris to do a podcast episode. I feel like she should have done it too. It would have allowed people to get that nice conversational style of your personality out. Anyway, again, ending it with that, you should not care what you're listening to is between your AirPods and your head, and there's nobody out there looking at it, or even if they are, don't care about them. Just listen to whatever you like. Just keep an open mind. That's it. And I'm not talking about you, Ilya, just anybody who's listening to this podcast.
But actually, one thing I wanted to bring up, and maybe I say this and we move on to what you're listening to. Some of the conspiracy theories that he gives the spotlight aren't conspiracy theories, but they are labeled as conspiracy theories. And I don't think we should go into the details because it just became so politicized. I don't agree with everything that he says, right? So, don't get me wrong. But I also do agree with a lot of things that he does say or he guests say, right? Not all of them by any means. So I probably only listen to 5% of what he publishes anyway. In many ways, I'm grateful that there are people, so Thanksgiving, right? I'm grateful that there are people like him and also like Lex who don't hesitate to actually talk about very difficult subjects that they will be labeled as conspiracy theorists for or cancel, but they are too big to cancel. I guess Elon is one of the people who are in that category. He also can say all sorts of crazy stuff, right? Not all of the stuff that he says is crazy. Yeah, I think it's up to every individual to decide what they want to take in.
Yeah, we as a society have a very binary, you're either left or right, you're either blue or red kind of lens increasingly, and that does bother me. I do love Lex's episodes, and some of the actually most interesting ones are, I forget the person's name, but this is the guy who has a Netflix series on...
Is it Graham Hancock?
Yes. He's widely debunked by the anthropology society as this doesn't make any sense, but that episode was actually very thought-provoking and interesting on Lex's episode about a month back, I think. So what am I listening to right now? Coming towards the end of the year, it's all sorts of sports stuff going on. Formula One season is winding up. There's 2 more races left. Tennis has Davis Cup and all that. As we speak, the finals are going on. And one of my all-time favorite players, Djokovic, actually announced Andy Murray, one of the other all-time greats, as his coach. And the whole tennis world is going what? So I'm all into sports, and very soon, in another week or so, all of this will be over. I'll be deprived of sports until about March or so, because I don't really follow the football like NFL and all that. I watch it once in a while, or hockey that much. I would watch it if there's a playoff game or something like that. But the sports that I follow, soccer, tennis, Formula One, they all end around November, and then they'll start around March or something again. So
cool. All right. So, and on this note, I guess we wish everybody Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
And we'll see you in early January.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Oh, wait. Where can people get our app?
On our website, of course, metacast.app. Well, if somebody's listening till now to this podcast and they don't know where to get our app,
they are fired.
So they should send us an email at hello@metacast.app.
No, hello@metacastpodcast.com.
Right, hello@metacastpodcast.com. Do we also have hello@metacast.app? We don't, right?
No, we don't.
Okay, we should maybe, just so we don't confuse ourselves once in a while.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening. See you next year.